So, welcome back to the Beast Game Podcast, and today we're talking about The Batman, which is another iteration of Batman, which is now, I guess, in the past 10 years, it's been about 3 different Batman, and I guess if you count the TV stuff, a couple more of that. This one is directed by Matt Reeves, who has done War for the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He had done Cloverfield, I think, as well. This is written by Matt Reeves, Peter Craig, and also a couple other people have some writing credits, but it stars the glistening vampire of Keith's dreams, Robert Pattinson, and Zoe Kravitz, and Jeffrey Wright. The synopsis is when the Riddler, a sadistic serial killer, begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his own family's involvement. So, as the synopsis basically states, the movie starts off on a political debate. This is the mayor of Gotham political debate. One person is killed, and it's basically done by the Riddler. And Batman, kind of at this point, is very early on in his Batman-esque figure in the city. So, police don't necessarily trust him, but he already has a relationship with James Gordon. Then you have some other people that hadn't really seen the Penguin other than some of those. Was that Joel Schumacher? Like, who did that one?
No, it was
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton did
yeah.
that.
So it really was in the Joel Schumacher run, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a while. Batman villains haven't been shown in a while, but this one takes a more darker, serious tone, more along the lines of The Dark Knight, as opposed to Snyderverse. It's not as dark as that. So taking a more realistic approach. The Riddler's more along the lines of some serial killer. Jay, who is the Batman fan, do you have your Batman underwear on when you watch the movie, Jay?
No, did not have no Batman underwear on.
So Jay loves Batman. Batman is the greatest superhero, according to Jay. How'd you feel about The Batman?
I liked it. I thought that it was a little long.
Yes.
A little long.
About 3 hours, but they could have cut maybe like 20, 30 minutes off of it.
An hour that shit out. But go ahead.
Like I was saying, they could have cut about 30 minutes of it off. It was a different take on Batman because you really don't see his detective skills in the previous iterations of Batman. This one, it was all about him being the detective and figuring shit out. And then it also showed his inexperience because every time we saw Batman, he was pretty experienced or he was a little bit more further into his career. Like he was only in, I think, year 2 of being Batman.
They make it a point to say that. I think
Yeah.
maybe once or twice in the movie.
Yeah, so you could see that he's trying to find his way, exactly his purpose on what he wants to be. And you can also see that he's a different Batman than from what most people know now, because he was very reckless. You could tell that he was just pushed by like anger and rage. He was not as subdued as he is now. So he was really off the hinges. Batman's a mental case. He's not all there.
He has childhood trauma that he has not
Right.
recovered from.
He was still good, but yet you could tell that like certain things that he was just missing just because of his inexperience, which is actually quite refreshing because in the previous iterations of Batman, we see him always figure it out or something. This one, he figured it out most of the times, but then there were times that he was actually wrong. And I mean, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I actually loved how they ended this. I enjoyed the movie. Acting was pretty good. Robert Pattinson, he was pretty damn good, man. I didn't think he was going to be that good, but he's a good actor. I enjoyed Zoe Kravitz. And there wasn't a person in this movie, a character that did not act well. Everyone did a great job acting. Colin Farrell, he after a while, I did see him in the prosthetics of his facial expressions and things that he does. That's like, oh yeah, that's Colin Farrell. The Riddler was fucking terrifying, different. Like you said, he was like a serial killer. He wasn't a comic book character Riddler. He wasn't the Jim Carrey Riddler. He was something totally different. And this
He's like the Zodiac killer or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the city of Gotham was fucked up. I thought that the Nolan version of Gotham City was fucked up. This one, insane. I mean, it is bad. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I just wish it was probably 20, 30 minutes cut off. But even with the runtime that it had, I wasn't, oh my God, this is dragging. I was really enthralled into what the fuck was going on. So, but I didn't notice it was long.
So, Matt, how do you feel about the Batman, Matt?
Like the movie, it was a different take rather than the action-packed movie. I think if you go in thinking like, hey, this is going to be straight action, I think you won't appreciate the film as much as you would. The thing about this movie, it's a little cerebral movie in my opinion, because the Riddler was all about psychological games in which the movie portrayed very, very well. It's early in his career, so Batman, very physical, very violent in this case. Again, still early in the movie, thought the acting was phenomenal. Action scenes when they were there were very good. As far as all this talk about emo Batman and all that stuff, I was just people in fandom. The guy isn't as physically intimidating. To do second year, I mean, no one starts off with this very refined in his second year, but pretty good. The movie is very well grounded, not only in its vehicles, not only in its fighting, not only in the house that he lives in, and the chemistry between Batman and Catwoman was amazing. So to have four main characters in a movie, typically Doom, look at Spider-Man 3, but this was very, very well done, very well written, especially considering that this was done during COVID and all this talk about reshoots, etc. I was a very well did movie, and I'm glad that was it Warner Brothers didn't put a cap on how long this movie had to play, because if they did, I could imagine it would have been like how Justice League was. So very well movie. I myself watching it. So
Big Mike, how do you feel about Batman?
Number one is not better than The Dark Knight. I don't care what everybody else
Yeah.
says.
No, it's not.
No,
Who's
it's
ever
not
on
like
that? He's smoking the good stuff, as Big Mike would
To
say.
me, it's just recency bias, and you're just hyped because
Yeah,
you saw
yeah,
the
I
movie.
agree with that wholeheartedly. It's not better than Dark Knight.
Not better than The Dark Knight.
It's better than Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I could argue. Yeah, I could agree with that, because I will say it is up there, and I think Jay hit the nail on the head. He actually said what I was going to say on why I actually like the movie so much. Was, to me, this is the first Batman movie where it was rooted in the detective portion of it, right? And I think a lot of people forget, and I said this to Beep in the movie theater, I said a lot of people forget that Batman's original comic was titled Detective Comics. But we never really get the detective part of it. Like, they get little hints where he's solving stuff, but it's never to this level. And to me, that's why this worked. I thought the tone was perfect, it being dark, because his name is The Dark Knight. So that made sense. I will say this. I like Pattinson as Batman. I did not like him as Bruce Wayne.
Really?
Every time I looked at him, I kept seeing fucking Twilight. He's not working for me as Bruce Wayne.
I would say that he looks okay in a suit, but I just don't like him. And for me, I just want Christian Bale. Like that.
Agreed.
Every time I see him, you have another English actor playing Batman. I'm like, I just want Christian Bale. His suit would resemble something in post Dark Knight Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me Christian Bale.
I would stress the year two portion of it, and I would assume that the suit is going to get better over time, because let's just go ahead and face it, they're going to make a sequel. I don't see this not being greenlit for a sequel.
It's already been done. He's already got it set.
When you were watching, you said you felt like it was miscast, and I don't know if that was just Pattinson or if it was other people in the movie as well, but overall, I felt like the cast really well. And like Jay said, shout out to Colin Farrell, bro, because I don't know how Jay saw it through the prosthetics, because I couldn't see it by the end of the movie, and he had the voice down pat. I was like, his Irish accent is thick as hell, and he sound like a monster. I'm like, I know foreign people are usually good at doing the American accent, but he had that whole thing down pat, and I was like, damn, I see why they gave this dude a series now, because I would actually watch. To me, it's a very good take on the Penguin, because it reminds me of Penguin from, I guess you say, Arkham Asylum, the games without the hat and the penguins around, but also from the comics. Jeffrey Wright's always a good actor to me. I never really have a problem with him. And Paul Dano, to see him from Girl Next Door to where he is now, I'm like, that's fucking amazing. I thought it was a real good take on the Riddler. The little foreshadowing or hint thing at the end, I was not a fan of.
Yeah.
That was like 10 minutes they could have cut out of that movie. Could have cut that part out. It wasn't necessary.
I will say I felt the 3 hours, but it wasn't Dune. I'll tell you, I fucking struggled through Dune. This one I was fine. It's not a shot at anybody that likes Dune, Keith. But like, I was about to fall out of my chair to go to sleep on Dune. And I was good with Batman. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the same cinematographer for the Batman that did Dune as well. So shout out to him, because I thought the cinematography was great. I don't know how anybody felt about when Pattinson first appeared, but I like the walk out the shadow thing. I thought it was one of the best Batman intros they've done.
It was great, but he did it 4 more times.
Everyone stops for a second. It's like, what's that?
And then they watch him.
Yeah.
And then maybe someone like swans up and shoots him in the chest, bounces off because that's all armor, of course. And then he gets punched in the face. Go ahead, Mike.
Again, it is year 2. The man will develop as time goes on. Now, here's a good question.
Mike, hold on, Mike. Before you even go any further, you're talking to a brick wall here.
No, I'm talking to a Superman fan. But
right. A man that just hovers constantly. You talking about Batman doing the same intro, come out of the shadow. Oh, let me just hover over people. Yes. With a cape flap. Yes.
That's
what I'm doing.
I'll go there in a second. But I was going to ask a question of, if we're talking about rehash, in Batman Begins, we saw Bruce Wayne go through training and everything and learning martial arts. We don't know if that happened with this one because it's a completely different universe. This Bruce Wayne literally may just know how to box or some shit. And that's it. If you look at the Batcave, his gadgetry isn't even what everybody else had. And it looks like, from what it sounds like, when the accountants was coming, he didn't even want to deal with the money. So I don't see where this Bruce Wayne, I could compare him to Bale's, because it definitely feels like a completely separate.
It was 2 different beginnings.
I have to disagree with that.
I don't like it at all.
It was 2 different beginnings. Well, see, this is the beginning from the comics. And from the comics, he was this was pretty close to accurate of what he was in his beginning years. Very close to accurate. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Batman Begins and this is 2 different beginnings. Like I said, he was more mentally stable to unstable. I said Batman's off. He's not all there. But this one actually showed him not being there. He's not a stable human being. But continue on, Mike. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that was it. I was just, when Keith made the point about we seen this on the rehash thing, I was just going to say, if that's the case, then we should never get an origin story about Superman again.
Never. Matter of fact,
I agree. We shouldn't have an origin story. I'm fine with that.
That might be a DC problem, right? Because that's one of the things I said about Spider-Man with Civil War. I thought was the greatest was that he hinted at the origin, but they never went through the whole thing of he was bit by a spider, this how that, and showed the whole thing. I was like, that was fantastic. Because at this point, who doesn't know where Superman originated from or where Batman originates? You don't really have to rehash it too much. And maybe, we could say that that's but for me, the fact that they didn't show Thomas and Martha Wayne get killed, that was a plus.
Yeah.
The fact that you found out some stuff about his father that they've never done in the other films, that was a plus. Like, there were certain lanes that Reeves went with it to really make it this crime noir type feel that I thought was really successful. And I was like, this is actually really, really good. It was refreshing to see this different, more comic accurate take on Batman versus the Tim Burton zany stuff. And then even Nolan, like Dark Knight is hands down the best one. Nolan's trilogy will forever be greatness. But it was good to see DC decide to go, we're not going to try to recreate that and create something fresh. And for me, I'm like,
I'm going to spoil this shit because it's not worth keeping it spoiler free, in my opinion. But I enjoyed the movie for what it was, sort of a side story. Matt Reeves accomplished what he set out to do and kind of making this a more cerebral Batman story. His second year in Gotham doing his thing, that was okay. And it explains Pattinson's youth and everything. I kept coming back to the fact that we've seen Batman when he's just starting out before. Batman Begins. Mm-hmm. Like, so why are we back to watching him as inexperienced, stumbling along as he was? What's the big selling in here? I like the mood and I like the atmosphere that Reeves put out there. It all happening on the backdrop of a political change. Gotham's is corrupt and you have all these players. Things happening after this major crime bust that occurred. Puts away one of the biggest mobsters in Gotham City. And Batman helped out to a small degree with that. The Riddler's pissed off. Goes about his reign of terror, so to speak. As personal as they made the movie, it felt like they were going a step back. The vibe I kept getting from the film is the same vibe I got when watching Star Wars Episode 7. Trying to take the best parts from previous movies and make it into this one. And I don't think it needed it. I think Matt Reeves was a strong enough director to make it his own film.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. Go ahead.
But the whole thing with him starting out, we didn't need that. Why? It's his second year on the job. He's already shown wear and tear. Get it? It's hard being a mass vigilante running around. He's just like Christian Bale's Batman. He's abandoned his Bruce Wayne persona and opted to live as Batman forever. Been done before, and I thought it was done by someone who was a little bit better than Pattinson was. I didn't like the action scenes. We're coming from watching Spider-Man, and we're even coming from Zack Snyder's love him or hate him. Still remembering that warehouse scene. Batman v Superman is one of the finest examples of how I've always thought Batman should be fighting, should be whipping people's asses. You come to this, and he's kind of getting knocked around, punched and by folks who shouldn't really be of any kind of
consequence to him.
Exactly, people of no consequence, and he's getting fucked up left and right. Like, granted, he comes out on top, and it falls and segues into my next point, was that Pattinson is not an intimidating person. Even in that suit, he is not intimidating. So him walking out of the shadows they did 4 scenes with him walking out of the shadows.
Yeah, it was that first one where I guess it was the street gang.
Yeah. They're like, what's happening? What's going on? What's about to happen? And then we see his jawlines and cheekbones, and you're like, okay, shoot him in the face. But no, he punches the guy 17 times. He finally goes down, and then he fights, gets slapped around a little bit, and beats him up in the end, and then walks off.
Were we watching the same movie?
Yes, we were watching the same movie. There was that whole ridiculous vengeance line.
I knew they hoped the same movie.
That came out twice too. Like that.
From what I saw, he was fighting. He was getting hit. Yes. But it's not like it was times that he was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting fucked up." Are we watching the same movie?
Yeah, he got punched in the back of the head. He did a couple. No,
hold on. Let's go back. Okay, he got punched in the back of the head.
Okay.
Ben Affleck got punched in the back of the head. He got shot in the back of the head.
Yeah.
He got stabbed in the neck.
Ben Affleck fucked that dude up.
Yeah, but you also got to remember, this is a different Batman. Like, I understand what you're saying with Christian Bale. We did the Batman Begins, but even then, when the Christian Bale was Batman in Batman Begins, he was a little bit more stable mentally. This is a different Batman that is not stable mentally. If you can tell just by his fighting style, he is all rage. He just goes forward. He just doesn't give a fuck. I mean, he stated it plenty of times. I don't care if I die. So he's fighting recklessly. So, of course, he's not going to be the perfect fighter because he doesn't give a fuck. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that goes along with the character that they're trying to show.
He just doesn't give a shit about what happens to him. He just wants to keep
Right.
He wants to keep fighting for Gotham. Like, he wants to fight for Gotham and have vengeance.
I mean, that's basically what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, did he not state that? I mean, this man walked up on a dude who had a shotgun and did not give a fuck.
I'm going to save that whole aborted mess for my last point. Didn't like the action sequences with him in it. Like, I think that it should have been way more finesse. They should have been, James, I know what you're about to say. He's raging, angry. He just wants to punch stuff and everything. He's very emotional.
Especially at the end of the movie.
He has a lot of emotions, and those emotions are coming out of him in the batsuit. But dude, no, it's not flying. The thing about this movie was that it was far more cerebral. 1 minute he's solving and trying to solve this case and solve the crime. When he gets into the actual beat of it, he's getting fucked up. I'm not saying that the portrayal is wrong. I'm saying Pattinson, he didn't carry it for me.
I have some comments about that. So, you know what? Let me step in.
Because if you're arguing that the story's not fresh, then again.
No, the
story is not fresh. The story is not fresh. The reason why is because most of it feels like it's ripped out from that Batman the Telltale series game, which does the same thing where Thomas and Martha Wayne were in it with the mob.
Yep.
And Batman somehow, way in his 30s, never realized that his parents were associated with the mob. Then the rest of it, to me, feels like the Christopher Nolan Batman. I'm just going to say this. I'm not sure if I like this movie. I will say Zoe Kravitz and Jeffrey Wright are okay. Colin Farrell's okay. Everything else, it feels competent. I would say that. But the movie's just way too long. There's no reason for this movie to be like 2 hours and 50 minutes.
We can all agree on that.
I think there was some point between the second and third act, I thought the movie was basically about to be over. And I'm like, yo, it's still like another.
What scene was that?
I don't remember. I looked at it, like, yo, it's still like another. Almost like.
The part when they caught him, right?
It's like it's a whole another hour. Yeah.
Is it when the Riddler's at the coffee counter?
Yeah.
The diner counter? Yeah, because I was sitting there. I know it can't be over. I know we should not want to end it on this note. I understand you, because I think it was like another Was it a 30 or 40 minutes after that?
I got something to say about that third act, but go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, but I can't really say I liked it. That's the problem. I think Robert Pattinson is not a good Batman. Don't also like the way that the Batmobile looked, saying that he's starting out and he comes out with a new car, but feels off. Andy Serkis as Alfred does not feel good.
I like Andy Serkis as Alfred.
Even that arc felt just useless by the time that he confesses that, hey, well, your parents were involved with the mob. It just felt off. Also, the end of the movie but the political
rally is the win. Yeah, the big win, the big rally.
And that just felt way too long. And then it's like, well, we're just going to flood the city. I don't really care about any of this stuff. Think that third act derails the movie. The first act is okay. That second act and then what eventually becomes the third act is just way too long. John Turturro is okay in the movie. Everything else, Catwoman, Selena Kyle's motivations, I don't care about it. She's okay doing what she's doing, but I just don't care. I mean, if it was a better actor playing Batman, like he seems to be a very weak Bruce Wayne and okay Batman, like I didn't see that. I just see Christian Bale. This made me forget about Ben Affleck, kind of forgot about that, but for me, it might just be a little too soon for a new Batman, just because we just had the Snyderverse Batman just show up just last year. Even though it was a re-edit of the movie, he just showed up last year. Jay, what score would you give the Batman?
I'd give it an 8. I said I enjoyed the movie. The acting was good. The action sequences were good. I don't know what the hell Keith was talking about. I understand the story and where it was coming from, and they did a pretty accurate job with that. It set a tone. It was very dark. And Nolan's universe was dark, but this one just seemed way darker. And then you also saw Batman at probably his most broken that we've ever seen him, which I thought was refreshing. It was a different take because we'd never seen him this broken in the cinematic universe. So I enjoyed that. Thought the movie could have been a little bit shorter. I really enjoyed The Riddler because I like serial killers and, well, that don't sound right. But I like the horror aspects of Riddler and all that. So I give it an 8.
All right, Big Mike?
I got it at 8.5. Like I said, I really enjoyed this. I have it up there with one of the better movies I've seen. As far as Batman goes, like I said, I didn't have a problem with the acting other than Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. Like I said, for me, he was fine as Batman. I thought everybody else did a good job. I liked the tone. I liked the crime noir kind of feel to it. The whole detective work I thought was excellent. And for the first time in a long time, I'm saying Warner Brothers, you did a good job. Not mad at it at all. I will say this. If you do a sequel, Court of Owls all day. Pattinson already said it.
Yep, definitely Court of Owls.
I think Court of Owls would be perfect for this.
Well, man, looks
like... Do not do Riddler again. Do not do Joker.
Well, man, that's what it looks like.
Don't.
I would say save the Joker for later. But Court of Owls need to be the way to go since they're talking about city corruption.
I mean, that's what they did with Batman Begins. The Joker was not the primary villain, at least the first time around.
Yeah, but they did announce him.
Yeah, I've heard Scarecrow's been floating around, which I think fits for the tone of the film, but you've already done that, so I would say skip that too. If you're going to go anywhere else, I agree with Mr. Freeze.
How would they do that with a realistic take, though?
Hold on.
Yeah, how would they do that without the freeze gun and all that good stuff?
We don't know what technology is.
Barry, would you say?
Victor Zsasz.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I'd say Zsasz or Court of Owls.
Realistic take on Scarface, like a short dude with a Napoleon complex.
Barry, you impressed me.
I'm a Batman fan.
I didn't think that you would say Zsasz. Holy shit.
Who is that person?
Victor Zsasz.
Zsasz, he's a serial killer.
Yeah.
Stone cold killer.
I could see him doing that.
We're fitting this because this is
even
more grounded in reality. So
I mean,
you could do Two-Face. You did a personality disorder type thing.
The old DA's dead. New DA comes in. He's legit.
Yeah. They got avenues to go. Stick away from the shit that's already been hashed up a bunch of times.
We could have really done a real interpretation of Black Mass instead of destroying Birds of Prey.
Yeah, they really do owe us that.
Oh, yeah, they could do Black Mass, but yeah, just don't. Ewan McGregor was not the problem.
right, but Keith, what score would you give?
I would watch this movie again only because I really like the look of it. So I would give it a 6.5.
Okay.
I'm shocked.
So I would watch it again.
All right. Matt, what score would you give the Batman?
I give the movie a 9.5. It's a different outtake.
Shit.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, it's better than just, hey, it's action, 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 and try to be cerebral as much as possible. And it was a movie about him being a detective, given that perspective that what he was trying to be, in a more grounded movie, not only in technology, but even in costumes, which carried even over to Catwoman. 9.5. I really enjoyed the movie. I'm glad they didn't edit the movie anymore than what it was. A little bit long, but you know what? It was a phenomenal product. So 9.5.
All right. So for me, again, the
Here we
movie
go.
is just rehashing a lot of stuff that we've already seen. And again, because of Warner Brothers dysfunction, some of that has already been done. And then if you're talking about things like the Joker, things don't need to tie into each other. But that Joaquin Phoenix movie, I did not like that movie. Like, he could be an older Joker. It doesn't really matter. But there are other avenues for Batman other than redoing what has already been done. So we already talking about the Court of Owls. There are other larger Batman stories that they could have done in place of this one, regardless if it's the Ben Affleck vision for Batman that just never panned out because he just said, like, hey, if I can't write and direct and also star in it, I'm not going to do it. There could have been other things that they've done that would not have been redoing things that could have also been covered in Batman Begins. Can we agree on that?
I agree.
Yeah, that could be same for any superhero movie, but yeah, I agree.
I would just say that they could have went the Jason Todd route, where you already have an established Batman.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you haven't gotten. I mean, because they try to do, well, Batman's too old now with the third, well, I guess, Dark Knight movie, the Dark Knight Returns. They tried to go that route, and that wasn't very successful. But there are other Batman stories that they could have done. They could have had Damian Wayne, and that
wouldn't work if he's young.
Different iterations of Batman other than covering a younger Batman. So for me, again, there are things to like about this because I'm not a big fan of The Dark Knight Returns. Like, I'm not a fan of that movie. I don't like that movie. Would I watch that? The movie exists. And Christian Bale's in it. I'm not a big fan of that movie. Dark Knight is all day 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Batman Begins, 9. But Dark Knight Returns, I would put this movie over top of that and follow.
Really?
I would follow up with Keith with 6.5 for this movie. And Dark Knight Returns, maybe at 5.
Damn.
I'm actually surprised you gave it 6.5.
I told you, I didn't say it was a bad movie. I just didn't like Pattinson.
I mean, again, there are things to like about this movie, but the things I like about it were already covered in the Nolan movies. You got something different with Ben Affleck being Batman. Like, regardless of how
broken Batman,
regardless of how gaudy the Snyder vision for stuff is, like, well, I'm talking about visual style, you still got something different. And I don't get that sense of, hey, well, this is Batman again with Ben Affleck to Robert Pattinson. I don't get that. But I do get it with, hey, Warner Brothers thought about this Batman stuff worked when we did Christopher Nolan stuff. Get somebody competent that can direct and give us that. And that's exactly what they did. They just went back to the thing that worked, which they should not have ended in the first place. But hey, I mean, Christian Bale probably didn't want to do it any longer. Christopher Nolan wanted to move on and give us crappy Tenet. Another movie that I hate. But all right,